Hello, my name is Jeff Ragusa, and I am presenting my plan to reorganize the Fire Prevention Bureau for the city that I work in. I'd like to explain a little bit what a Fire Prevention Bureau does. Fire Prevention Bureau is typically a division of the fire department. In the Fire Prevention Bureau that I work with, we have three subdivisions. We have a plan check new construction division, which deals with all types of construction, new and existing buildings, making sure that it's regulated. We have a environmental side, which works with regulations for industrial waste as well as any sort of hazmat management or use within facilities of the city. And we also have a fire life safety division, which is the division or subdivision of the Bureau, which primarily does annual and biannual inspections of properties to make sure that they are safe for our citizens to occupy or take part in if they're a commercial establishment. Other areas covered within our subdivisions include our vegetation management program, which manages the defensible space for homes that lie in a high fire hazard area. In our city, we have 9,000 of these lots, and it's crucial that our program ensures that there's defensible space on these properties so that in the event of a wildfire, we are able to defend those homes. Our city does have a very, very large urban interface portion of it, so this is a very, very critical portion of our Fire Prevention Bureau. And then we also have a household waste collection area, which is unique for sure for our city as well as for a fire department to run it. And that's where we collect all household waste from residents for both our city and then some surrounding areas within our city. So who are we as a city? You know, I mentioned that Fire Prevention Bureau is part of the fire department, which is obviously managed and employed by the overall city. So I work for the city of Glendale. It is important to note that this business plan is completely fictitious. It is my personal project and view on how we could reorganize the division I work for. The city is one of the larger cities in LA County. We have the fourth largest fire department in LA County. The city was incorporated in 1906. A very big employer with over 1,500 employees. 30.6 square miles, but a lot of that is urban interface, as I mentioned earlier, meaning it's in the hills. We have a very, very dense downtown area. And then the 206,000 residents is only the Census Bureau overnight number. If you add in commuters, if you add in those who are not necessarily on our census, it is likely quite a bit more than that, especially when you include the daytime commuters. To give an overall idea or perspective of where Fire Prevention Bureau lies within the bigger picture of the fire department budget, I provided this graph. I mean, the majority, majority of the cost of our budget lie in the personnel that are actually responding to emergency calls. The overall 80 million, which our annual budget is for the fire department, the strong majority go towards that division. To put it in perspective here, the light blue sliver, the 1,731,241, is the labor budget that we have to work with for this presentation in order to attempt to support a reorganization of the Fire Prevention Bureau. And understand that despite increases in revenues, which we may be able to manipulate, that budgeted number will not change. We need to, anything we do needs to stay within that budget. So if we change an organizational structure, if we add here, we need to take away from somewhere else to overall compensate for it. That budget's not changing. And the overall operating budget is the other number you see there, the 3,893,224. That includes all the services that go into operating the fire prevention unit of the fire department. In order to do a revenue forecast, I think it's important to understand what portion of our revenue that we can directly affect from a Fire Prevention Bureau standpoint. Property taxes go into our general fund. That is by far the largest amount of revenue that we get coming into the general fund and eventually funneling to the fire prevention unit. Occupancy taxes are something that's already established. These are things that the Fire Prevention Bureau directly manages in terms of ensuring that those occupancies are compliant, safe, able to be regulated by state or federal or local jurisdictions. But really the one that we have the biggest driving factor of is the permits. And this is where efficiencies truly can directly affect those revenues. So on my next slide, I'm going to refer to talking about and forecasting our permits and the revenue generated from the permits in the coming years. So a lot of things go into permits for construction projects. Not only is it the basic inspections as well as the use and occupancies, permits, and the operating costs, all of the additional things that may be worked into a larger construction project. For example, you have a huge impact like the Americana or a 27-story high-rise or something that is going to impact the city. The permit fees, the initial permit fees, are where you build in some insulation to help with the infrastructure of the city. So, very large high-rise comes into town. We may require that entity. I mean, you're talking about a multi-million, if not, close to $1 billion project, depending on the scope of it. We may require, as part of their process, for them to upgrade the infrastructure in terms of the water supply system, or perhaps we require them to widen the streets one block in every direction, or maybe, even though we've never done this, maybe we require them to donate some of their space for, public use or park or greenery. All of these things go into the permitting process. So a good way to kind of project and ensure that we have monies coming in is to look at the buildings and construction projects, the larger ones that are currently under construction and the ones that are approved. So there's a couple listed here that are currently under construction and still probably have at least, a year to 3 years left before completion. These are ones that are likely to be completed. They're a very, very small percentage of the total construction projects, but they're a barometer to view and project that we're still going to have revenues coming in from a permit standpoint. When compared to, and I do this in my paper, when compared to the last 12 months, this number of larger construction projects is similar to what we have expected in the past.
So another good thing to look at, important thing to look at, is projects that are maybe not necessarily under construction, but those projects that are approved. In other words, these are ones who have gone through the permitting process. These are ones that have put a lot of money into zoning committees, planning committees, all of the things that are really get to the point where you can actually break ground. So on these, we have quite a bit of ones that are approved but haven't started construction. And in 2008 we had these, and I remember these were the ones that they didn't pull out during the recession because they were already committed, they already funded, they had everything other than actually break ground. So these are the ones that are likely to continue even through a recession. For these, we have 312 units increased projected that are already approved. What that means is, let's say you have a 30-unit apartment building, a developer comes in, wants to tear that down, and create a 100-unit hotel room, that's an increase of 70 units within the city. So there is a good number and a consistent number of these as well, which further insulates the fact that I believe our revenue will continue to support our labor budget.
In short, it's safe to say that our revenue for the next 5 years, based on the forecasted construction projects and those that are already through the process and have started construction, in the overall larger building and construction properties that, regardless of an economic decline, are likely to continue their projects, will remain relatively constant. And this should also be noted that all this revenue from here does not directly go to the Fire Prevention Bureau. It goes into the general fund, and as I mentioned, that budget, which we have established for labor, does not change. If our revenue increases, that does not go up. If it goes down significantly, which is what I'm trying to forecast for, then it could be cut. But based on the forecast of current permits, construction permits, that is the most closely related to both the workload as well as the revenue generated directly from the Fire Prevention Bureau unit, it's safe to say that that budget will stay the same over the next 5 years. So the question is asked, why reorg? What validates our desire to reorganize the department? And in short, we have an organizational chart which has morphed over time, primarily because we've had some long-term employees who have gained certain skills valuable to the division. We've adjusted the positions to fit the personnel rather than the personnel to fit the positions. And over the years, it has morphed to a very top-heavy division. We have a assistant fire marshal and a fire prevention engineer, which are really senior level management. And then we have an extremely low level management position known as a principal fire environmental safety specialist. Now, all of our management positions require, by civil service, them to have previous management experience. None of our non-management positions offer this, as of now. So as these senior employees are leaving, we run into an issue of not having internal succession planning for our personnel to be able to move into and progress through the organization, resulting in turnover as well as employee unsatisfaction. Definitely supported by the recent recruitment efforts of a assistant fire marshal, which is the highest position within this division. Even though I was able to have it run as an internal and external opportunity, there was no question that that position was going to be filled from an external candidate. Not because we don't have good personnel or good people within the organization, but because there's no route for our people currently to go from an entry-level inspector, an entry-level position, and progress and gain the experience they need to enter management within the division. So this is the main reason why I believe that a reorganization of this division is necessary. To explain this org chart, let's look at this rather briefly. So the different colors are for the different divisions or subdivisions of the fire prevention division. As I mentioned, those 3 management positions, directly under those, for example, the SFESS, which is the Senior Fire Environmental Safety Specialist, or the Fire Environmental Safety Specialist, are very highly skilled, very highly technical positions. You can go from an entry-level inspector, which would be a FPI, or Fire Prevention Inspector, or a HMAS Specialist, HMS, into these FESS and even the SFESS positions by simply gathering technical knowledge, by getting your schooling, your experience, and creating opportunity for yourself to prove to the organization that you're capable of taking on more technical work. That's not a problem. The problem lies in jumping from that inspector level into any level of management, because currently there's zero supervisory experience to be gained in any of those positions. The proposed org chart. Now, what the proposed org chart does is a couple of things. It eliminates a very highly technical position called the Fire Prevention Engineer 2. Fire Prevention Engineer 2 is an extremely valuable technical position which is currently filled. The ability to remove that comes in the fact that for those highly technical opportunities where we need an engineer, specifically a fire prevention engineer, we can agree on a third-party consultant and move that cost over to that developer. The reason that we can do that is it's extremely infrequent. There's no legal obligation for us as a Fire Prevention Bureau to hold such a technical position. In fact, the majority of these individuals in the state are contractors. They are very few are employed by cities. And if we need basic engineering issues, we have the architectural experience and the engineering experience available to us through our neighboring division of building and safety. So basically, the removal of that position, also the removal of the very, very low level principal fire engineering safety specialist, and merging into two related positions referred to as deputy fire marshals. One of them would be over the environmental side. The other one would be over both the plan check, new construction, as well as the fire life safety side. Now, what this does, in addition to creating a path, is this also provides experience for them to work back and forth amongst the divisions. Equal pay, equal positions. Somebody who is aspiring to move up beyond the deputy fire marshal position, who really needs to gain experience in both divisions, has that opportunity to be able to move over to the environmental side or the fire life safety side once they hit that position or that rank. The other portion on here, the SFESS position, those positions with this reorg would be put at supervisory level, meaning they would be positions that would be in charge of evaluating employees regularly. They would have direct reports. This is currently not the case officially, although we've instituted it just to get these guys experience. But after the reorg, it'll be official change in their position so that they will be responsible for the evaluation of employees. That creates two ladder positions. The SFESS position creates two ladder positions for the entry-level inspectors once they gain that technical school to get that management experience. And if you notice on these, if you are a inspector on the green, the tan, or the pink, the positions are all the same once you get to the FESS position, which means, again, you have that ability to gain experience by switching divisions so that you are prepared to move on to that senior FESS position, which is a supervisory position. And then eventually that deputy fire marshal position, and then the next one, the assistant fire marshal position. So this creates a ladder, creates succession planning, and it also creates an efficiency within the division because we now have people that can gain experience on both sides without actually changing positions. They simply swap divisions without having to go through a job reclassification. Okay, so both of those org charts were presented. Something that is important to note in my conclusion here is that, you know, the cost to the city for this reorganization is zero. You basically are changing positions, likely on attrition, meaning when one of those positions leaves, which they're all senior employees, so eventually they will leave. But putting this in place and moving the monies over to new positions. The actual labor budget stays exactly the same. The positions are basically taking a low-level management position and bringing it to a mid-management position, and bringing a high-level management position and bringing it to a mid-level management position, and keeping the one senior level management position, which is assistant fire marshal, in place. One thing that wasn't mentioned in this presentation, but is in my paper, is that, you know, we have the talent internally. We have, and I validate that with education as well as experience. What we don't have is opportunity for them to move within our organization. We have created our own ceilings. We've lost people to other agencies. We lost people to private industry because they get this ceiling put on them, and there is just physically no way for them to advance from a very technical position to a management position. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Please reach out if you have any questions. Again, these are all my opinions only and do not reflect anything that's in place or necessarily planning or approved to be in place anytime